The bullet hits the wall 3 inches from Zara's head before she even knows what is happening. She drops. Training, not fear. Her body is already flat on the hospital corridor floor before her brain catches up with the sound. The second shot takes out the fluorescent light above the nurse's station. Glass rains down. Somewhere behind her, a nurse is screaming. Zara presses herself against the base of the wall, breathing hard, and she thinks, with a strange clarity that only comes in crisis, that she did not survive 6 years of Lagos traffic and 2 years of night shifts in one of Incheon's most underfunded hospitals to die on a linoleum floor. She raises her head just enough to see 2 men in the corridor, both armed, both moving toward the private ward at the end of the hall. They're not here for her. They're not even looking at her. They are moving with the focused efficiency of people who have come to finish something that should have been finished 3 days ago. 3 days ago, a man was brought into her or with 3 bullets in him and a black dragon tattooed up his neck. 3 days ago, she saved his life. Zara does not think. She grabs the crash cart handle from beside the nurse's station, heavy metal on wheels, and she shoves it as hard as she can directly into the path of the first man. It catches him at the knees. He goes down hard. The second man spins toward her. She is already moving, slamming through the fire door to her left, running down the stairwell with the sound of boots behind her, and she knows with absolute certainty that the man at the end of that corridor, the man she pulled back from the edge of death with her bare hands, is about to be killed in a hospital bed. That is not going to happen on her watch. She hits the second floor, cuts through the maternity ward, loops back through the service corridor that only the cleaning staff use. She knows this building the way she knows her own hands. She comes out behind the private ward, pushes open the door, and she is inside the room before anyone expects her. Seong-Jun is already sitting up. He is pulling a drip from his arm with the calm efficiency of a man who has done far more unpleasant things than remove his own for. There is a weapon on the bedside table. She does not ask where it came from, and his eyes, when they find her face, are the most alert eyes she has ever seen in a patient 3 days post-surgery. Done, he says. It is not a request. She drops. The window behind her explodes inward. Kai is already moving, off the bed, fluid and fast for someone who should not be standing. And there is a sound, and then silence, and then the heavy fall of a body in the corridor outside. Zara stays on the floor. She stays there for 4 full seconds. Then she stands up, straightens her coat, and looks at him. He is breathing hard. There is fresh blood soaking through the left side of his hospital gown. He has torn his surgical site. He is holding the wall with one hand and looking at her with an expression she cannot name, something between disbelief and something much more dangerous than that. You came back, he says. You're bleeding through your sutures. You came back, he says again, like she has not spoken. Sit down before you undo 4 hours of work. He sits. Not because she told him to. She understands that immediately. Seong-Jun does not do things because people tell him to. He sits because he chooses to, and right now he is choosing to let her press her hands against his side and assess the damage, and he is watching her face the entire time she does it. The sutures held, she says. But you need redressing and you need to stop moving like that for at least 2 weeks. That's not going to be possible. I know. Most people would have run the other way. She does not look up from his wound. And not most people. No. His voice is very quiet. You are not. She feels his eyes on her face. She does not look up. That is how it begins. Not with flowers. Not with a slow smile across a restaurant. It begins on a floor covered in broken glass, with Zara's hands pressed against a wound she already closed once, and a man who has never in his adult life been looked after by anyone, looking at her like she is something he does not have a word for yet. His name, she learns over the following days, is Seong-Jun. He is 34 years old. He runs an organization called Incheon, the Black Dragon, which is the most sophisticated and ruthless criminal empire in South Korea. He has a face that belongs on a magazine cover and eyes that belong on a man who has seen things that would break most people in half. He is not a good patient. He argues with the nurses. He ignores his medication schedule. He has 3 different phones and uses all of them simultaneously during her rounds, which she has told him twice is unacceptable and which he has ignored both times. But he always puts the phones down when she walks in. Every single time. Without being asked. He puts them down, he turns to face her, and he gives her his complete and total attention in a way that makes the nurses whisper and makes Zara keep her face professionally neutral and her observations brisk. She checks his chart. She checks his wound. She tells him what he needs to hear without softening it. He asks her one question every day that has nothing to do with his recovery. The first day, where are you from? The second day, how long have you been in Incheon? The third day, he watches her update his chart and says, why did you take my case? Every other surgeon refused. She finishes writing before she answers. Because someone should have. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. I became a surgeon so that no one would die on my table because someone else was afraid. That's it. There's no more to it than that. He is quiet for a moment. Most people are afraid of me. Most people haven't had their hands inside your chest cavity. She caps her pen. I have. It makes you significantly less intimidating. Something moves across his face. It takes her a moment to recognize it because she has not seen it on him before. He is almost smiling. She leaves before it finishes happening. She leaves, but she thinks about it on the walk home. The almost smile. The way he puts his phones down. The way he said you came back with that particular weight, like he was talking about something much larger than a hospital corridor. She tells herself she is simply noting clinical data about an unusual patient, and she almost believes herself. He is discharged on a Thursday. That evening, Zara comes off a 14-hour shift to find her nurse waiting with an expression caught between scandal and awe. A car came, the nurse says. Delivering something. For you. Inside the black envelope, a single MAC card. No limit printed on it, because men like Seong-Jun do not deal in limits. No note. Zara holds it for 30 seconds. Then she opens the hospital's donation portal and transfers the full amount, 50 million won, to the children's ward. Under the donor name, she types, Seong-Jun KAI. She hits confirm. She closes her laptop. She goes home and sleeps for 9 hours, which is the best sleep she has had since she arrived in South Korea. The next morning, the hospital director is waiting outside her office at 7 a.m. There is a journalist from the Jongong. Apparently, the donation was large enough to fund 30 new beds, and it has been attributed publicly to, he pauses, a known crime lord. It is a donation, Zara says pleasantly. Have a good morning, Director Choi. She walks into her office. She closes the door. She waits. Her phone rings at 9:15. Unknown number. You donated my money to sick children. 50 million won funds, 30 beds. The math seems sound. Under my name. I thought attribution was important. A pause. Long, deliberate. You are the most unusual person I have encountered in a very long time, Dr. Okonkwo. I'm going to take that as a compliment. It was meant as one. There will be more. More compliments. More money. She leans back in her chair. Then there will be more donations. I hope you enjoy your philanthropy, Mr. Seong-Jun. She hangs up. He sends 200 million won the following week. She donates it, all of it, to a children's hospital in Lagos, Nigeria. Under his name. He finds out when a donation receipt arrives in his email from West Africa, addressed to him personally, thanking him warmly for his generous support of underprivileged children across the continent. He sends his second-in-command, Oh Sang-pil, 40 years old, lean, precise, with eyes that calculate everything they land on. Sang-pil requests a meeting. She finishes her surgery first. He wants to meet with you, Sang-pil says. He has my number. In person. Tell him where I have dinner, Zara says. If he wants to speak to me, he can come to me. Sang-pil's expression does not change. But something in it shifts slightly, the way a very precise instrument adjusts when it encounters an unexpected variable. Kai comes. Of course he comes. It is 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. She is in the staff room eating jollof rice she made on Sunday and has been rationing since. She is alone. She has her shoes off. A medical journal is open on the table that she is only half reading because the other half of her brain is still in or 3 with her last patient. Kai walks in without knocking. Plain dark coat. No entourage. He looks in the unflattering light of the staff room, like a man instead of a symbol, and that is somehow more arresting than all the power attached to his name. He looks at her feet. He looks at the jollof rice. He looks at her face. He sits down across from her without being invited. She does not offer him any rice. She also does not tell him to leave. You rejected my gratitude twice. I didn't save your life so you could owe me something. That is exactly why I'm here. He says it without drama. No one has ever spoken to me the way you did. What way? Like I was a person, not a position. You told me I was not intimidating because you had your hands inside my chest. Do you know how long it has been since someone spoke to me without calculation? She is quiet for a moment. What do you want, Kai? He does not react to his name in her mouth. But she sees something in his eyes that means he noticed. I want to know who you are. The real answer. Notre résumé. Why? Because you are the most interesting thing that has happened to me in 12 years. And I have very few interesting things left. Zara looks at him across the staff room table. This beautiful, dangerous, oddly honest man, and she makes a decision she will spend several weeks second-guessing. She tells him about Lagos. She tells him about her father, Pastor Seong-Jun Okonkwo, the most decent man she has ever known, and about her sister Yemi, 24 and sweet and terrifyingly trusting of the world. She tells him about the scholarship, about the loneliness of the first year, about the way this city still feels like a place she is passing through. He listens the way very few people listen. Like every word matters, like he is building something careful out of everything she gives him. When she finishes, he does not offer sympathy. He says, "Your father sounds like someone worth being." She looks at her hands. She says, "He was the best person I ever knew." She asks him about Hugh Kryong. Most people don't. Most people either pretend they don't know what it is or are too afraid to say the name out loud in the same room as him. Zara says it plainly without lowering her voice, the same way she reads a diagnosis, clearly, because clarity is the only kindness that is actually useful. Tell me about Hugh Kryong. The real answer, not the reputation. Kai looks at her for a long moment. Outside the staff room window, Incheon is doing what it does at midnight, glittering and indifferent, wet streets reflecting red and white light in long smeared lines. I built it when I was 19, he says. After my family was destroyed. She waits. There was a syndicate. Old money, political connections, criminal infrastructure going back 40 years. They decided my father owed them something. He didn't. But that didn't matter to them. He is very still when he speaks about this, not the stillness of suppression, but of something processed so many times it has become architecture. Load-bearing. They made an example of him. In front of me. I was 17. I stood there and I couldn't do anything. So you decided to be somebody. I decided to be the thing nobody could make an example of. Yes. She turns her spoon in her bowl. Do you hurt people? Yes. Innocent people? Feet. No. That is a line I have not crossed and will not cross. But you're not good. No. I am not good. He says it without apology. I have never pretended to be something I am not. I know. She looks at him. That is the strangest thing about you. What is? You're the most honest person I've spoken to in this country. Something moves across his face that is not quite a smile but is related to one. You have low standards for honesty. I work in healthcare. You develop low standards quickly. He actually smiles then. Briefly. Like a door opening and immediately closing. But she sees it, and it changes the geometry of his face in a way that is not helpful for her ongoing policy of professional detachment. She stands. She gathers her bowl. I have a 6 a.m. round. You should go. He stands. He does not move toward the door immediately. There is a charity dinner on Friday. The Incheon Children's Foundation. You have donated to them twice, under my name. It would be strange if neither of us attended. She turns off the tap. Her back is to him. What time? 7:30. I'll think about it. She hears him leave. She stands at the sink and tells herself this is professionally manageable. This is a patient showing appropriate gratitude, and none of these things are true, and she knows it. She goes to bed. She lies there for 40 minutes not sleeping. She thinks about the way he said tell him where I have dinner, and how he simply came. No hesitation. No strategy that she could detect. Just the directness of someone who has long since stopped performing, because performance is for people who are afraid of being seen, and Kai Seong-Jun, she is beginning to understand, is not afraid of very many things. The list is short. She is beginning to suspect she is not on it. She thinks, this is a problem. And then she thinks, no. A problem is something you did not see coming. This she has seen coming since the moment he looked at her across that hospital room, and she felt the full, careful weight of his attention. She turns off the light. She goes to the dinner. She is wearing a deep burgundy dress. Her hair is down, long and straight, falling past her shoulders, the way she only wears it when she is not at work. She arrives at the venue, a converted hammock in Buckshin with lanterns in the courtyard and the smell of chrysanthemums in the cold air, and she is barely through the entrance when she sees him across the room. He sees her at the same moment. He goes still. Just for a second, half a second, the way a person goes still when something catches them completely off guard. Then it passes and he is composed again, moving toward her. You came, he says. I said I'd think about it. You said it in the tone of someone who had already decided. Don't flatter yourself. But she is almost smiling, and he sees it, and they both pretend he doesn't. The dinner is long. The food is excellent. They talk for 4 hours in a way that feels nothing like 4 hours. She tells him about her first surgery, the panic of it, the way her hands were steady even when her heart was not. He tells her about a night in Busan when he was 21 and had nothing, absolutely nothing, and sat on the harbor wall and made a decision that changed everything. What was the decision? That I was done being afraid, he says simply. Everyone's afraid of something. What are you afraid of? She is quiet for a moment. That I came here to escape something and called it ambition. Did it work? The escaping or the ambition? Either. She turns her wine glass slowly. Ask me in another year. They are so absorbed in each other that neither notices, for a while, that they have been noticed. Nanjaizo arrives at 8:40, late and deliberate, in ivory silk that costs more than Zara's monthly salary. She is beautiful in the way of things engineered to be beautiful, precise, cold, aware of its own effect. She scans the room, finds Kai, finds the woman beside him, and her face arranges itself into an expression of absolute social grace, hiding something that is not graceful at all. She comes to their table. She touches Kai's shoulder as she passes, a claim, not a greeting. Seong-Jun, you didn't mention you'd have a guest. Jisoo. His voice is even. I didn't mention a lot of things. She turns to Zara with a smile so warm it has no heat in it whatsoever. I don't think we've met. I'm Min Jisoo. Seong-Jun and I are old friends. Dr. Zara Okonkwo. Zara shakes her hand. Firm. Direct. She does not perform deference and she does not perform intimidation, and Jisoo, who is very good at reading people, reads this immediately and files it. A doctor. How lovely. How did you two meet? She saved my life, Kai says. The simplest sentence in the world. Jisoo's smile does not change, but something behind her eyes goes very, very quiet, the quiet of a calculation being made at speed, while the face holds perfectly still. How remarkable, Jisoo says. Isn't it, Zara says pleasantly. Jisoo moves on, but she does not go far. She takes a seat 2 tables away, angled so she has a clear sightline to Kai without appearing to watch him. Zara clocks this within 30 seconds. She says nothing. She files it. She is a surgeon. She catalogs without reacting, and she does not react to Jisoo, because reacting is exactly what Jisoo wants. Kai leans slightly toward her, just enough that she can hear him clearly without anyone else being able to. Ignore her. I am ignoring her, Zara says serenely. I am also watching her. Those are different things. He looks at her. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? He thinks about this, apparently genuinely. Someone who would be intimidated by this room. By me. By her. I operate on people who are dying. Everything else is significantly less urgent. Something in his face softens slightly, barely, just at the edges. Like frost beginning to shift. I would like to take you somewhere, he says. Not an event. Not with other people. Somewhere quiet. Is that a request? It is whatever you need it to be. She looks at him for a moment. Steady. Assessing. Ask me again when you've finished your soup. He looks at his soup, which he has not touched. He picks up his spoon. She watches him eat and thinks, I am in significant trouble. Jisoo moves on. She makes the rounds, laughs with the right people, touches the right arms, and every 10 minutes, with the regularity of something mechanical, her eyes come back to Zara. Kai notices. He says nothing, but she sees his jaw tighten once, barely, and she stores that observation. On the walk to the car, she says, Who is she? Really? An old complication. She looked at me like I was a problem she was already solving. He is quiet for a moment. Jisoo solves problems by removing them. Is that a warning? He opens the car door. He looks at her. Considerate information. She gets in. She looks straight ahead. She thinks about the way Jisoo's eyes came back to her over and over, with the patient rhythm of something that is not going away. She does not know yet what that means. She will find out in 11 days. The 11 days in between are the best 11 days she has had since coming to South Korea. He does not overwhelm her. He does not crowd her. He appears, a car waiting after her night shifts, simply there, reliable as weather, food sent to her office from a restaurant she mentioned once in a passing sentence, a single message on a Sunday morning that says only, The park near your hospital has cherry blossoms. In case you haven't looked up recently. She goes. She walks through the park in the early light. She does not message him back. But the next time she sees him, something in the way she looks at him is different, and he sees it, and neither of them says a word about it. He tells her things. In pieces, the way you give someone something fragile, carefully, watching their hands. He tells her about the network he has been systematically dismantling for 8 years, the political criminal syndicate that destroyed his family, tentacled through government and business and law. He tells her it is almost done. He tells her he does not know what he is on the other side of it. What do you want to be? She asks. They are on the roof of the hospital, her secret place, the place she goes when a patient dies and she needs sky above her instead of ceiling. She brought him here without thinking about what it meant, and she is thinking about it now. I don't know. For 20 years I have known exactly what I was moving toward. And now I can see the end of it, and I look beyond it, and there is nothing? Not nothing. He looks at her. Something I don't have a name for yet. You'll figure it out. You sound very certain. You're the most determined person I've ever met. Determination doesn't know how to stop at the finish line. It just looks for the next thing. He is quiet for a moment. The next thing, he repeats, like he is trying on the shape of it. She looks away first. She always looks away first, which is not something she does with anyone else, and she knows exactly what that means, and she is not ready to say it yet. And then her phone rings. A Lagos number. She feels it before she answers. The cold foreknowledge of a surgeon who has delivered enough bad news to recognize the shape of it before it arrives. She steps away. She answers. Her aunt's voice, high and thin. Yemi. 24 years old. Arrested. Fraud charges. A hearing scheduled in 10 days. Impossibly, suspiciously fast. Zara hangs up. She stands with her phone in her hand and the city below them, and she breathes very carefully, in and out, the way she breathes in surgery when something has gone wrong and panic is not permitted. Zara. His voice. Right behind her. My sister. Her voice is perfectly steady. She's been arrested in Lagos. Fraud charges. The case is moving too fast. Someone is pulling strings in Nigeria from here. She turns. She looks at him. Do you know something about this? He takes exactly half a second too long to answer. Tell me what you know, she says quietly. Right now. He tells her he needs time. She gives him 48 hours because she cannot give less. Because she needs those same 48 hours to pull every document she can find, to call every contact she has in Lagos, to trace the fraud complaint back to its source with the same methodical focus she brings to a diagnosis. She does not sleep. She drinks coffee and eats nothing and works through both nights with her apartment floor covered in printed pages and her laptop screen leaving blue light on her face at 3 and 4 and 5 in the morning. The fraud complaint was filed by a company called Hana Meridian Consulting, registered in South Korea. She searches the registration documents, goes deeper through beneficial owners and shell layers, and the pattern she finds underneath 3 layers of corporate distance makes her go very still at her kitchen table. The company connects to a family foundation. A foundation whose primary donor, whose founding patron, whose name appears in the earliest formation documents, is Min Jisoo. Zara sits with that for a long time. Then she calls Oh Sang-pil. His name appeared on a subsidiary registration connected to the same network. She leads with that. He answers on the second ring. I need you to tell me what you know about my sister's arrest. Silence on the line. Not the silence of someone who doesn't know. The silence of someone deciding how much to say. Min Jisoo identified you as a pressure point, he says finally. Kai's unusual attention toward you is noted. She made contact with individuals in Lagos who have connections to old business. The complaint against your sister was a message. Designed to make Kai unstable. Using my family. Yes. Is Yemi physically safe right now? Yes. She is in custody, not in danger. How long have you known? A pause. Longer than the last one. Sang-pil. 4 days. She hangs up. She sits at her kitchen table with her phone face down on the documents. Outside, Seoul is waking up, indifferent and relentless. She breathes in, out. Then she puts on her coat and goes to find Kai. He is in his Bakshan office, the traditional hanok that is also his headquarters, all clean lines and cedarwood smell. She walks in without announcing herself. The men at the door do not stop her, which tells her something about what Kai has said about her access. He stands when she enters. She puts the documents on his desk. She watches his face do nothing, which is its own answer. You already knew, she says. Yes. About Jisoo. About Yemi. Yes. The word hits differently the second time. She keeps her voice even. My sister is in a Lagos holding cell because someone is using her to get to you, and you knew, and you did not tell me. I was handling it. She is my sister. Her voice does not rise. It drops lower, which is worse. She is 24 years old and she is terrified and she is alone, and you sat in front of me on my rooftop and you said nothing. I was protecting you. You were managing me. She holds his gaze. Don't confuse those things. He is quiet. He does not reach for justification. He just absorbs it, accepts the weight of it, which she will think about later. Is Yemi going to be freed? Yes. When? Soon. That is not an answer. Within the week. She looks at him for a long, measured moment. If anything happens to her, she does not finish the sentence. She does not need to. She picks up her documents and she leaves. She does not come back for 3 days. The third day, deep in research, pulling the last threads of the document trail independently, because she will not sit still and wait for anyone to handle her family. She finds the next piece. Cross-referencing payment records against names in Kai's network, looking for the point of contact between Jisoo's operation and Lagos. She finds a payment. Large. Dated 3 years and 2 months ago. The recipient account traces back. Through layers, she strips one at a time with the patient focus of someone performing surgery to a church operating account. The church is registered on Lagos Island, Nigeria. She knows the church. She knows it the way you know the smell of somewhere you grew up. She knows the wooden pews and the blue and gold stained glass, and the way her father's voice sounded in that space on Sunday mornings, large and warm and entirely certain of the goodness of things. The account belongs to Pastor Seong-Jun, her father, dead 3 years ago. Heart attack. She was in the middle of her 3rd year of surgical training in Incheon when the call came. She flew home. She buried him. She came back because he would have wanted her to come back, because leaving would have meant stopping, and stopping would have meant feeling everything she was not ready to feel. Her father, in these documents, paid by a South Korean shell company 14 months before he died. Zara puts her hands flat on the table. She looks at the screen. She reads it again and again. Then she calls Kai. He answers on the first ring. He always answers on the first ring. My father, she says. Zara Okonkwo. Tell me how his name is in these documents. Tell me everything. Right now. The silence on his end is different from any silence she has heard from him before. It is the silence of something being set down. Carefully. The way you set something down that has been too heavy for too long. Come to Bukshin, he says. Tell me now. Zara, please come. She goes. He is standing in the middle of the room when she enters, not behind his desk. Like he didn't want the desk between them for this. Something in his face she has never seen there before. Not guilt exactly. Something older. The face of someone who has been carrying a specific weight for a specific number of years and has always known this moment was coming. She stands in front of him. She waits. Your father came to Seoul 14 months before he died, he says. He was in trouble. He had been used, without his full knowledge at first, by the network. They ran money through the church account. Small amounts, then larger ones. When he understood what was happening, he tried to stop. They threatened you and Yemi. She is very still. He came to us because he had nowhere else to go. The network's enemies were the only people with the power to help him. He gave us everything. Names, account numbers, transaction histories. It moved our operation forward by 2 years. He was brave. He was completely, remarkably brave. And then, she says, his cover was compromised. Someone inside the network identified him as a source. We were moving to extract him, bring him to Seoul, get you and Yemi somewhere safe, when his heart gave out. He stops. The doctors said it was genuine. A cardiac event. But he was 53 and had spent the last year of his life under a terror no man should have to carry. Zara looks at the floor, the window, then at him. Did you know who I was? When they brought you into my hospital. Did you know I was his daughter? No. He says it with the directness of a man who knows this is the only question that matters. I didn't know until 2 weeks after my discharge, when Sangpil ran your full background. Your father used a different surname in his communications with us. I didn't make the connection until I already. He stops. Until you already what? Until it was already too late for that knowledge to change anything. She understands what he means. She wishes she didn't. You should have told me, she says. Yes. The moment you knew, you should have told me. Yes. Why didn't you? He is quiet for a moment. Because I was afraid of what it would do to this. To us. He says the word like he is aware of its weight. That was a selfish reason. I know that. She turns to the window. Bukshan is beautiful and still outside. Traditional rooftops against a gray sky, persimmon trees lining the courtyard below. My father died protecting us, she says. And I didn't know. I thought I lost him to something random and indifferent. I grieved that. I made peace with that. She turns back. And now I find out he was a hero. He walked into something enormous alone, and he did it for Yemi and me. And he died carrying it alone. Her eyes are dry. Her voice is steady. This is somehow more devastating to watch than crying. I am so sorry, Kai says. He means it. She can hear it, the specific texture of genuine remorse, which is different from the performance of it, and she has heard enough of both to know the difference. She nods once. She picks up her bag. I need time. Take whatever you need. She walks to the door. She stops with her hand on the frame. Did you protect the people who threatened him? After? No, Kai says. They no longer exist. She nods again, barely. And she leaves. She goes home. She sits in the dark. She does not turn the lights on for a long time. She thinks about her father, his voice, his hands, the way he laughed, the way he used to say that every person you meet is carrying something heavy, and the kindest thing you can do is carry some of it with them. She thinks about him in Seoul, alone, frightened, handing over everything he had to a criminal organization because it was the only way to keep his daughters safe. She thinks about Kai, who knew, who carried that alongside everything else he carries, who sat beside her in the dark on a rooftop and said, I don't know what I want to be on the other side of this, and maybe the answer was something he had already seen in her eyes before either of them was ready to name it. She thinks about all of this until the city outside goes quiet. Then she does something she has not done since she was 16 years old, and her mother told her that crying was not a solution to anything. She cries. Not dramatically. She is not a dramatic person, but steadily, quietly, sitting at her kitchen table in the dark with her hands flat on the documents, for about 4 minutes. She cries for her father, who died a hero without anyone to witness it. She cries for the version of her grief that was built on a lie, the version where he just died, randomly, the way people do, without meaning or sacrifice or the specific ache of someone who chose to give up everything quietly and alone. She cries because she has to. And then she stops, because she always stops, because she has things to do. She washes her face. She looks at herself in the mirror. Okay, Daddy, she says, very quietly, to the mirror. To him. To the air. I see you. I see what you did. I see all of it. She goes back to the table. She keeps working. Because that is what he taught her. That grief was not an excuse to stop. That love was something you demonstrated in the continuing. That the best tribute you could pay to a good person was to keep being good yourself, even when it cost you, even when no one was watching, even in the dark. She keeps working. And then her phone rings again. Oh, Sang-pil. Without preamble. Min Jisoo has gone to a government task force. She has given them everything. A full dossier on Kai's operations. A pause. She has named you as a co-conspirator. Financial fraud. Money laundering through the hospital property. There is an arrest warrant being drafted. Dr. Okonkwo, you have 48 hours. The floor of Zara's apartment is still covered in documents. Her father's name is on one of them. The city outside is dark and silent. 48 hours. If this story already has you feeling something, hit like right now. You're going to want to be subscribed before part 2 drops. She does not panic. She never panics. Panic is a luxury she has never been in a position to afford. She spreads the documents across the table. She reads them again. All of them, from the beginning, with fresh eyes, looking for anything she can use. She calls her lawyer in Lagos. She calls a colleague with legal contacts in Seoul. She is building something methodically, because sitting still and waiting for a man to handle it is not available to her as an option. At 2 a.m, Kai calls. I know, she says before he speaks. Sang-pil told you. Yes. I'm fixing it. I know you are. She looks at the documents. I'm fixing it too. A pause. Zara, I'm not going to stop working on this just because you're working on it. Yemi's situation and my situation are connected but separate, and I have avenues you don't. Silence. Then, all right. It is the one word she needs to hear from him. Not, let me handle it. Not, you don't need to do this. Just, all right. Acknowledgement. Respect for her agency. She keeps working. He keeps working. They do not see each other for 4 days. On the 4th day, a message from her aunt in Lagos. Yemi is free. All charges dropped. The case was closed quietly, without explanation, before the hearing even reached a judge. Yemi is home, confused and shaken, told only there was an administrative error. She does not know, will perhaps never know, how close she came to the edge of something enormous, or who pulled her back. Zara sits with this for a long time. Then she calls Kai. He doesn't answer. She calls again. She calls Sang-pil. Where is he? A pause. The pause of a man who has decided to be honest about something he has been watching unfold with complicated feelings. He went to the task force, Sang-pil says. What do you mean he went? I mean he walked in. Alone. This morning. No lawyers. No security. Another pause. He had a folder. I saw it before he left. It was everything, Dr. Okonkwo. 15 years of documentation on the political network. Names, accounts, transactions, testimony. The information the task force has been trying to build a case around for a decade and a half. She grips her phone. What did he ask for in exchange? Sang-pil is quiet for a moment. Your name. Clean. Every document Jisoo filed. Retracted and destroyed. No record connecting you to Hyukryong in any form. The silence that follows is complete. That's it? He gave them everything, and he asked for that? That is what I said. What does this mean for him? It means Hyukryong ends. His testimony collapses the network, but it also exposes the organization's infrastructure. He has negotiated immunity for himself and his core people in exchange for full cooperation. But the empire, Sang-pil stops. The empire is over. Everything he built. 20 years. Zara stands up. Where is he now? The task force building as of an hour ago. The hospital rooftop, she says. He'll go to the rooftop. She is already out the door. She runs 3 blocks before she finds a cab. She sits in the back with her hands in her lap and her heart doing something she does not have a clinical term for, and she looks out the window at Incheon streaming past, and she thinks about a 19-year-old boy who watched his father kneel and decided he was done being powerless. She thinks about everything he built. She thinks about what it cost him. She thinks about him carrying her father's death alongside everything else alone, for years. She thinks about what it means to give up the only thing you have ever built in order to protect someone you are not sure you have the right to protect yet. She thinks about her father, who did exactly the same thing, who gave up his safety and his peace and ultimately his life to protect 2 daughters who would not know until years later. She thinks about how love, real love, does not announce itself. It just acts. It just moves. It gets in a cab at speed and goes somewhere it cannot be certain of, because the alternative is standing still, and standing still is no longer available. The driver glances at her in the mirror. Miss, are you all right? She realizes she has been gripping the door handle. I'm fine, she says. Please drive faster. He drives faster. She gets to the hospital. She takes the stairs. She hits the roof door at a run and pushes through, and the cold air hits her face. He is there, standing at the edge of the rooftop, looking at Incheon the way she looks at it, like a man who needs sky above him instead of ceiling. His coat is open. He looks from behind, like someone who has put down something very heavy and is not yet sure whether the lightness feels like relief or loss. She walks toward him. He hears her footsteps. He doesn't turn around. She comes to stand beside him. She looks at the city with him. Neither speaks. Below them, Incheon glitters and hums, indifferent to everything happening on this rooftop, exactly as cities always are. You gave up everything, she says. He turns to look at her. Not everything. You're still standing. She looks at him. This beautiful, strange, honest man who built an empire out of refusal and tore it down for a single name on a warrant. You should have told me you were doing this, she says. I would have. What? Talked me out of it? No. She holds his gaze. I would have told you that you didn't have to. He looks at her for a long moment. I know, he says. That's why I didn't tell you first. She steps toward him. She takes his hand. He goes very still. The stillness of someone not accustomed to being touched without intent or calculation. Just the simple weight of another person's hand saying, I am here, I see you. You are not alone in this. They stand like that for a while. Below them, the city moves. Above them, the sky is enormous. Between them, the complicated, necessary calculus of two people who have walked through something enormous and are standing on the other side, figuring out what it is they're holding. What happens to you now? She asks. Immunity. Cooperation. Then I don't know. He looks at the horizon. Maybe that thing I was trying to describe to you. The something I didn't have a name for. She squeezes his hand. Once. Come inside. You look like you haven't eaten. I haven't. Then come inside. He follows her. Of course he does. She makes him eat in the staff room. Terrible vending machine coffee and the last of her jollof rice reheated twice, and they sit across from each other in the ugly fluorescent light, and it is the most honest, ordinary, right thing that has happened to either of them in a very long time. Weeks pass. Kai cooperates fully with the task force. The political network, 58 individuals across government, finance, and law, is dismantled in what becomes the largest corruption prosecution in South Korean history. Jisoo is among the arrested. She says nothing at her arraignment. She does not look for Kai in the gallery. He is not there. Zara keeps her ward, keeps her patience, keeps the children's beds still funded, anonymously, by a donor whose name she knows but has never mentioned to anyone. She and Kai exist in a strange in-between space, not the dangerous electric tension of before, when everything was potential and risk, not quite the settled thing it might become. Something in the middle. Real. Warm. Moving forward at the pace of two people who have been careful with themselves for so long that learning to be careless, the good kind, the necessary kind, takes time. He brings her coffee at unreasonable hours. She tells him things about medicine he has no use for and listens to with great attention. He learns the names of all her patients. She learns the names of his core people, who are, she discovers gradually, far more complex and human than the sum of their histories. A man called Daeho who makes excellent ramen and cried at a dog video once. A woman called Sora who used to be an accountant and handles the remnants of Kai's legitimate businesses with terrifying efficiency. People who had their own reasons, their own survivals, their own complicated loyalties. Oh, Sang-pil develops a habit of appearing when she is alone late at the hospital and checking, with the manner of a man who finds care professionally embarrassing, that she has eaten. She does not make this easy for him. She enjoys it enormously. One evening she asks him directly, "Why do you keep checking on me?" He is quiet for a moment. Then, "Because he asked me to. In the beginning. And now I do it because..." He stops. Appears to reassess what he was about to say. "Because you are one of the few people I have met who makes things better simply by being in them. It is an unusual quality. I find it worth preserving." She stares at him. "Sang-pil, was that a compliment?" "Do not make it strange," he says and leaves. She laughs so hard she has to sit down. She tells Kai about it the next day. He looks deeply unsurprised. "He said that?" "Word for word. He has never said anything that kind to me in 15 years. Maybe you should eat more regularly." He looks at her. She looks back. The smile they share in that moment is quiet and private, and it belongs entirely to the two of them. 6 months later, Zara goes home. She goes to Lagos Island in November, when the heat is bearable and frangipani is flowering along the road her father used to walk. A free clinic, a converted townhouse 2 streets from where she grew up. She got the funding herself, a grant, 2 donors, and a private contribution from an anonymous South Korean source that the grant committee accepted without questioning because the number was too useful to question. She settles in. She unpacks. She sleeps in her childhood city for the first time in years and wakes up to the sound of Lagos, the particular, unrepeatable sound of it. The generators and the early morning hawkers and the rooster 3 streets over that has apparently survived every urban development in the neighborhood's history, and she lies there and lets it hold her. She thinks about her father. She thinks about the road outside, which he walked every morning to the church, his Bible under one arm and his thermos of tea in the other hand. She thinks about Yemi, who is sleeping 2 floors up in the same house they grew up in. She thinks about Incheon and its gray skies and its neon rain and the hospital rooftop where she used to go when a patient died and now goes for a different reason. She thinks about Kai, who is somewhere in Seoul right now, in cooperation meetings, in depositions, in the slow, complicated dismantling of a life he built to survive, and who sends her one message every morning at 7 a.m. Not a conversation. Not a request. Just one sentence. A fact, an observation, something small. Yesterday it was, The persimmon tree in the Buckshin courtyard still has fruit. The day before, Daeho made ramen today. He put an egg in it. Progress. She does not always reply, but she always reads them. And some mornings, not all, but some, she reads the message and she smiles before she is fully awake, and she thinks, yes. The next thing. The clinic opens on a Monday. By Friday, the waiting room is full. She is with a patient, a girl, about 8, with terrified eyes and a fever that broke this morning but left her wary when her nurse touches her arm. There is someone at the door, the nurse says. He said you would know. Zara finishes with the girl first. She always finishes with the patient first. She gives her a lollipop from the jar she keeps for the children. She watches the girl stop being afraid. That is the part she does it for, that exact moment, every time. She walks out to the front of the clinic. The Lagos sun is horizontal and gold, the end-of-day light that makes the whole city look like it was designed specifically for this moment. This light, these two people. The street smells like suya smoke and wet earth, and the ocean somewhere behind it all, close enough to feel in the air. Children run past the clinic doorway. A woman is selling plantain from a tray balanced on her head. The neighborhood sounds like itself, as it always has, as it always will. Kai is standing on the pavement. He is wearing a simple white shirt. He looks slightly out of place and entirely unbothered by it. He is squinting a little in the Lagos sun and looking at her the way he has been looking at her since he woke up on her operating table and found her face above him, like she is the most remarkable thing in his field of vision and always will be. She stops. He looks at her for a long moment. You didn't tell me you were leaving Incheon, he says. I told Sang-pil. Sang-pil is not me. No, she says. He is much more reliable. The corner of his mouth moves. Almost a smile. Then all the way, the rare, real kind, the door opening all the way, and it changes his face entirely, and she has never gotten used to it. He steps toward her. I told you, he says. Told me what? He is looking at her like all of the last year is in his face right now. The rooftop, the staff room, the floor covered in documents. The night she pressed her hands against his side and told him to sit down. The morning she put her hand over his on a cliff top and they watched the sun come up. You belong to me, he says. And she laughs. Not a polite laugh. Not a performative, socially functional laugh. A real one, full and warm and completely unguarded. The laugh of someone who has stopped being careful because careful is no longer what the moment requires. She walks toward him. He meets her halfway. And right here, if you have been watching since the beginning, if you sat with Zara on a hospital floor with bullets in the wall above your head, if you were in the or at 2:47 in the morning when she refused to let him die, if you stood on the Incheon rooftop and felt what passed between them, right here is your moment. Right here is what staying until the end was for. She walks toward him and the Lagos sun is on both of them, and the city sounds like it always has and the world pulls back, until they are two small figures on a golden street, moving toward each other, and then together, and then the screen holds them there for one more breath. One last, perfect, insufficient breath of it. And then it lets the dark take over. And it goes black. And in the silence that follows, before the sting text appears, before the music, before anything, you will feel it. Not the ending. The beginning. Because this is not a story that is done with you. This is a story that has decided you belong to it now. 3 months after Kai's testimony was accepted, a body was found on Jeju Island. The tattoo on his neck was not a dragon. It was a serpent. And it was a message. And everyone who knew what it meant understood. The dragon was gone, and they were coming for everything he loved. You Belong to Me, Part 2. Coming soon. If this story lived in you, hit the like button right now. Leave a comment, the moment that broke you. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Part 2 is coming, and you are not going to want to miss the first second of it.